I was lying on an old couch, waiting for the start of a medical procedure. The dim light in the room flickered occasionally, and shadows from the lamp danced on the walls, forming grotesque and shifting shapes. The nurse, cold and expressionless, glanced at me briefly before turning away, her movements unnervingly slow. My father, seated in the corner, nervously checked the time on his watch, the sound of its ticking unnaturally loud in the oppressive silence. The air felt heavier with every passing second, as if the room itself was alive and watching. Suddenly, I blinked, and everything changed. I was no longer on the couch, but in a brightly lit café, its atmosphere sterile yet wrong, like a dream where nothing feels quite real. The place resembled a McDonald's, but the vibrant colors seemed muted, almost drained. I was seated at a table across from a girl I barely recognized, though her presence felt oddly familiar. For some reason, we sat apart, an unspoken barrier between us. To my left sat an old acquaintance, his face half shrouded in shadow, his eyes fixed on me with an unsettling intensity. To distract myself from the rising unease, I performed a trick. I retrieved a strange object from my pocket, a small, intricate medallion, its surface etched with symbols that seemed to shift when I wasn't looking directly at them. As I held it, I felt its power surge through me. With a mere thought, I commanded the cutlery on the table to move. Forks and knives floated in the air, twisting and dancing as if alive. The man beside me watched with an eerie grin, but the girl barely reacted, her eyes glassy and vacant. Then it happened. The medallion grew cold in my hand, its power draining away. I realized, too late, that its energy had transferred into a mundane object, a Big Mac box. I froze, my heart pounding as the box began to emit a faint, almost imperceptible hum. Before I could react, the girl smirked, her expression suddenly sharp and malicious, and she tossed the box into the trash. Panic gripped me as I bolted toward the bin, but when I reached it, the box was gone. Not just discarded, gone. The trash can was empty, its interior impossibly dark, as if it led to somewhere far deeper than the cafe floor. I felt a chill run down my spine, and when I turned around, the cafe had changed. The vibrant light was now dim and flickering. The people inside were no longer eating or talking. They sat unnaturally still, their faces twisted into grotesque parodies of human expression. Their eyes were black voids, and yet I could feel them watching me. The whispers started low, almost imperceptible, but they grew louder, overlapping into an incomprehensible cacophony. Words I couldn't understand but instinctively feared. I stumbled toward the counter, desperate to distract myself, and mumbled to the cashier that I needed an ice cream. She didn't respond. Her head jerked unnaturally, turning toward me with a sickening crack. Her face was hollow, her mouth stretching wider than it should as she whispered, "You will never find it." I spun around, and the cafe dissolved into a decaying, abandoned building. The walls were cracked and bleeding black ichor. The air was thick with the stench of rot. In the center of the room, where the medallion once lay, was the Big Mac box, glowing faintly with a pulsating light. But now it was open, and from within, tendrils of shadow writhed and reached toward me. Behind me, the whispers turned into guttural growls. I didn't dare turn around. The shadows from the box began to crawl across the floor, their shapes twisting into long, clawed hands. And then, from the depths of the box, a voice emerged, deep, hollow, and resonating with unspeakable malice. "You've touched it. Now it will touch you." The tendrils shot forward, and the last thing I saw was the cafe walls collapsing into darkness as the shadows consumed me.